Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 250, recorded on Friday, May 12th, 2023. Zilly, Zonka, and the Project Factory. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of project automation. I don't know the rest of the made-up lyrics. Anyway, a little Willy
Practicing this all
Wonka.
morning for you guys, so I hope
Oh,
you
yeah,
enjoy it.
all morning. We didn't even know we were starting the show. We're just sitting here talking with Freddie, and all of a sudden I see the banner, and you're like,
See
"Hey,
the
we're starting
timer, so
the
here we are.
show." Boom, just like that. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, real good. Enjoying some gross weather here in Fort Collins. My girlfriend's family is in town. They're actually in the living room right now. So, yeah, life is
Ah,
good. Looking forward to the weekend. How about you?
fantastic. Back from Josh's grand wedding
Back
or
to the grand
reception.
grand celebration.
Fantastic. Good time. I saw some pictures. You're stronger than any of us thought you were. We'll just leave it at that. Um, Anyway, we have a lot of news to cover in the world of Zoho. So, with that, let us get right on into the show with some announcements and events. As always, if you head over to Club Zenatta and you click on the home screen or the events tab, you will see all of the latest events that are coming up in the world of Zoho. They live here on the sidebar if you're watching us on YouTube, but we also have a whole announcements and events section. If you click on Zenatta, it will be all of the events that we've got going on, such as the show that we're doing right now as an announcement, and then all of the upcoming events. We are doing a Zoho inventory, Shopify, and WooCommerce best practices webinar next Tuesday. That should be a big one. It's going to be Josh and Cody basically giving a full rundown of everything we've got going on there. And then, as always, Azaz and CRM Zen Show twice a week. And if you click into the Zoho link, here's all of the Zoho events. And we have the other events, but I don't know if we have any yet. No others. All you Zoho partners, all you other people doing Zoho events, let us know. We want to get those in there as well. And kind of interesting on the Zoho events, Tyler, they have got Zoho Books, a guided tour coming up, which leads me to an announcement that we have, which is that we've kind of gone ahead and revamped our YouTube channel a little bit. We're sitting around playing with this the other day, and one of the things that used to be on here, if you ever went to our YouTube channel, is we would have popular videos. The problem with that is that our 2021 or 2020 Zoho One overview had 40,000 views, and it would always show up number one. And YouTube's a little strange. If we take it down and replace it with another video, then basically all of the SEO that we've gotten on that video is kind of gone away. And so we would always have to put links on the old video saying, hey, there's a newer video, go over here and you can do that and check it out. But now we've done it. We've replaced it with a brand new section called Zoho Product Overviews. And so we've got the Zoho One product overview. We're kind of running through all the 2023 stuff, and then we got the
Yep.
2022 stuff. And you kind of, so it's kind of going, it's not necessarily in chronological order, but at least you can look at it and go, okay, here's the stuff from 2022. Basically what is up here is the most recent video we have done on that particular product or service. And there are probably a couple
Yeah, always
others we could.
important too. I mean, you want to try to watch our new stuff. Things change over time, especially with like the Zoho
They
One
do.
webinar, right? I mean, I think from the first one we did to now, there's probably 6, 7, 8 new applications that we covered in the video. So well worth it to try to find the newest one if you're going to watch one of our tutorials or webinars.
Yeah, it really is. And strangely enough, I was just fumbling around, and because we did the Zoho Books full product tutorial live, and it went up live, there was no editing needed because we were that good for an hour and 2 minutes, Tyler. It actually never made it into what YouTube considers a video. It was considered a live stream. And it actually has more views than any of our other videos at 64,000 views over the last 11 months. So I guess it's time to do a 2023 Zoho
Sounds like
Books
it.
because a lot of stuff has changed there. All right, with that, let's head right on into the news. Tyler, we got a big one here. Zoho project automation in Zoho projects. You've been waiting for this for a long, long, long time. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of part two of an update that we covered earlier in the year where they added proper workflow management for tasks within Zoho projects, meaning if a task of a certain name is completed, you can run a custom function, you can send emails, you can send click messages. So really similar to what you have in like the CRM for their workflow management. The piece that they didn't add with that update was the ability to run those workflows off projects. And now they have, right? So it's actually tons of use cases for this. Like right off the top, imagine a project moves from status to completed. You might want to automatically invoice. You might want to notify the AP team. You might want to, whatever, right? There's all these different things that you want to do based on that project status. So just being able to set that up natively here inside of projects is great. There were some workarounds to do this via Zoho Flow. So you could kind of do this in the past with Flow, but not everyone has that. Not everyone's comfortable using it or wants to spin up a whole separate application. So great update from Zoho to add this. I mean, for us, obviously being kind of automation nerds, anywhere where we can trigger a function is going to make us happy. And this is a pretty big trigger inside of Zoho projects.
Alrighty, moving on. Zoho Creator updates for 2023. Um, some nice ones in here. The portal session timeout. So if you actually are using Zoho Creator as some sort of portal for your clients, it will now have a session timeout. Hopefully that's an optional thing because I love that ours never times out when I'm in there. I guess there wasn't an option to manage it. Now, as a safeguard, is it going to happen automatically? Oh, you
Yeah,
do
and
have
this is for
never.
like customer portal users
Customer
as well, is
portal,
where they've
yes.
added this. Yeah,
Yes, so you
which is
can
nice. I
choose
mean, on a
never.
security basis, it's kind of a best
Yep,
practice, that you get booted eventually.
it is. It is. So anyway, that is very, very nice. Um, and you can go ahead and set that up. I think that's kind of one of the major updates. Advanced email analytics is down in there now.
Yep.
Um,
I think they upped
I
some of the
noticed.
limits for CSV imports. You can import bigger CSV files now as well, which is really
Yeah,
nice if you're building a large database in there. Yeah, it looks like they're going to be rolling it out to support files up to 2 GB, which is a big CSV. That is a very, very big CSV with a lot of rows and columns.
large
Um,
file. It's nice. You
that
don't
should
have to
cover,
break
I
those
mean,
up
most
again.
people's use cases, that's going to more than cover it. So yeah, nice kind of
Yeah.
technical backend updates here for Creator this week.
Yeah. Interesting, though, you do want to note here that some of these are only available for Creator 6. So
Mm.
advanced email analytics is only Creator 6. The timeout is for Creator 5 and 6. And I know a lot of people have yet to switch to 6, but as they kind of roll these out, I think this is maybe going to force more people to make that move. Alrighty, and then moving on with the news. Unused formula fields are no longer computed inside of Zoho CRM. I'll give a basic version, then Tyler, you can kind of go in deeper on here and maybe talk about some workarounds. But if you were in CRM and you had a field and you didn't use it anymore, and so you went into the back end and you said remove, it basically it doesn't delete it when you remove a field on the back end from a record. It moves it over into an unused field section. You then will have to go into the unused field section to totally delete it. Most people don't, and it sits over there in unused fields. Um, Oftentimes, if you didn't want a calculation field, a formula field that you were calculating things to show up on the record, you would just do that and move it to unused fields, but it would still work as something that it would still calculate and still affect the other fields in the record that maybe were being shown. That's not the case anymore. So that is going away, and you will not be able to do that. If a field isn't unused, then it's not going to calculate anymore, and nothing is going to happen. But since that is something that kind of people liked, Tyler, and might have wanted to use, we could use layout rules or something like that to get around that.
Yeah, because kind of where this could become an issue is if you had a formula field and let's say you remove it, right? And maybe you change your mind, right? A couple months later, you go, you know what? I actually kind of want to bring that formula field back into my record, right? You could just drag it right back in, and in the past, all those values would still be filled in. With the new behavior, they won't be filled in. right? If you do remove it, because they're no longer going to compute it on the back end. So this is one of those cases where you really just want to be sure you want to remove it before you do, because it is going to stop its kind of ongoing, formula calculation. And you may want to consider, if you're thinking about removing one, just hiding it with a layout rule. We oftentimes will create like a record information section down at the bottom of the record, create like a single checkbox that just says show record information and a layout rule. You can even make that show record info an admin only field, right? So that a lot of this stuff just gets hidden from everybody. Just because now, there will be a little bit of pain and suffering if you do decide to bring that field back in, because you'll have to edit each record to get it to populate.
Alrighty, and then moving on, more AI. So basically, Zoho is building OpenAI ChatGPT into virtually everything that they do now. And they're doing some pretty interesting stuff with SalesIQ. There's a lot here. So if you're in a SalesIQ chat, one of the things you can do is summarize it. So after you finish up the chat, and if you're watching us on YouTube, they've got a nice little animation of this. You can actually have ChatGPT summarize it and take the entire chat, maybe copy that, paste it, put it somewhere in the customer record if you wanted to do that as well. Um, you can actually have it suggest tags. So it will automatically, after you get off of a conversation, automatically add tags to that conversation. And
Nice.
this one, Tyler, I'll leave it to you. This is kind of a scary one, but you now have a Chat GPT card in Zobot. What do you think of that?
Think twice before using this. So what this is essentially, for Zobots, you can build like structured flows where it'll ask certain questions based on responses. It'll send people down certain paths. And each one of those is little actions that you want to take is called a card. And so what they're doing is adding a card here where the user can chat directly with ChatGPT via your SalesIQ widget. The reason I say be careful with this is that ChatGPT is great for summarizing things and, doing some of that synthesis of gathering lots of sources and rolling them up for you, but it does get factual information wrong, right? It can get citations wrong. It can misread websites. Back in the Microsoft tech demo originally for it, it actually got companies' public financials incorrect, right? Which are like factual, highly available information. So I'd be a little hesitant here, because someone could ask this a question about your business. What's the pricing? Do you do discounts? All these different things. And you might not have the proper guardrails there to make sure that you're going to get the correct answer out to that customer. So I would say use this with caution, just to be safe, right? Because people could ask it anything through that chat window, and it's going to give them an answer, and it's going to look like it came from you, right? And your business is endorsing that answer. But the other things in here are really cool. The rephrase is awesome. I love the ability to just be able to type a simple response and say, hey, ChatGPT, make this sound good, right? Shortening your messages if you feel like one is too long, right? Like those are great tools that make it way easier to respond to chats. But just be a little careful with that ChatGPT tool in the Zobot, because you just don't know what it's going to say. It might say your pricing and it could get it wrong, right? And now this customer has been told something that isn't accurate. So a little bit of risk, but really cool to see these tech kind of get implemented in so many different Zoho applications. They've really been on a tear lately, adding these across the board.
Yep. All right. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, we were talking earlier about Google has gone crazy, and
Yep.
there's so many things they're rolling out there. I mean, you write an email and you can ask it to rephrase your email. There's just, um, it's going to be nice. I mean, it's nice. And, we were playing around. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll get to some other AI stuff later on in the show. Stay tuned. Moving on with the news, we're going to talk about a bunch of financial updates now. So the whole finance suite every month, usually around this period of time, the first or second week, the finance team releases all of the updates they've done for the various finance products. So we're going to start with Zoho Books. You now have a new module called Payment Numbers. Allows you to custom. You've had payment numbers. Now you can customize the payment numbers manually, and you can go ahead and set that up in the back end as well. You can now a little more customization on your reports. They have a new selection, which is you can arrange the period from latest to oldest. something that didn't exist before when you were putting a report together. And that's kind of it. Just a few little minor things there. So not much in the world of books this time around. Payroll has some crazy updates, Tyler. So in the US, you can now specify a non-taxable earning. So I don't know how they got around this before, buddy. But
I
you don't
guess for
see
the
Zoho.
non-accountants, right, a non-taxable earning would be something like an approved expense that you're going to pay out as part of payroll, right? That obviously
Right.
the employees should not pay income tax on a reimbursement of an expense. And so, yeah, it looks like you couldn't do that before, unless there was some kind of other way that isn't obvious in here. So sometimes
So
we used to have kind of a running joke of like, man, I thought that was already there. That with those updates, and
right.
this would fall into that category because I don't know how you would use this without the ability to pay out things like reimbursed expenses. It's pretty core A1 functionality, right?
Yeah, and there's been, we have basically our advice to people has kind of been just wait on Zoho payroll, wait on Zoho payroll. I don't, they're officially in, I think, 8 or 9 states. They are in beta in another 10 states or more. Um, and they've been rolling it out. And if you have all your employees in one state and it happens to be one of those states that Zoho's in, and you're using Zoho People, it might be something worth, and Zoho Books, it might be worth something trying out. But it's little things like this that, I still feel like they're going to need just another, couple of
Yeah.
years to get all of the
And I
feature
think
functionality in there.
And at the end of the day, kind of where we're at, and the recommendation I give a lot of prospects if we do end up talking about HR and payroll is that pick kind of an all-encompassing provider, right? An ADP, a TriNet, Zenefits. I guess they just got acquired by TriNet because the things that Zoho payroll and people aren't going to do for you is health insurance administration, 401k, right? All these other things that are part of the HR suite, right? So you can end up a little bit fragmented if those are benefits that you want to provide. There's just not a platform here within Zoho to do those. And so for us, it's
Right.
always been an important thing for Zenatta to provide those for our team. And there just isn't really a way to do it here. You'd have to totally spin up a separate application and manually reconcile the costs into accounting and run all of those processes. So there is this kind of benefit to paying a little premium and just going with one of those full service shops.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into payroll. So, one of the reasons I really want to see them get payroll right is there are a lot of clients that we chat with who are on QuickBooks and they use QuickBooks payroll, right? They're not using all of the other stuff. They're not doing the 401k and the management and the benefits and all that. They've got that all handled separately, but they're doing payroll under QuickBooks and they can't, maybe it's a state where Zoho payroll is not there yet. So I would love to see them get this right and get this rolled out because I think there are a lot of people that the only reason they're not really moving over to Zoho Books is they're still running payroll out of QuickBooks kind of thing. So anyway, otherwise some minor updates. Moving on with the financial suite updates here. Zoho Inventory. You now have the ability to um, override some tax amounts inside Zoho
Yeah, it
Inventory.
looks like if
So
you're doing purchase transactions, you could do a tax override, which does
yeah.
make sense, right? If you're buying wholesale, those are generally tax exempt. So being able to manually select that is, again, something I would have assumed is already there because most of the time, if people are purchasing from manufacturers, it's not relevant to charge that tax. So
Yeah, they've been rolling out
never hurts to have it.
a lot of tax overrides lately. I've noticed in the last month they were saying, "Oh, you can override tax on this," because you had a whole problem like with sales tax being charged in Shopify already, then coming in, right? There was a whole nother thing there they're working
Oh
on.
yeah.
So it appears like they're getting a handle on taxation without representation, right? So there we go. Moving on, wrapping it up. Zoho Expense has a few new rollouts as well. Um, you can now filter activity log reports. So you can filter them by user, which is kind of nice. Take a look at those. You can customize the app's theme, which is interesting.
Big one.
Uh, they've got new preferences for Travel Desk, which I have to say, I actually had the privilege of sitting down with the Zoho finance team this week. They asked me to come and speak at a conference of bookkeepers and accountants around Zoho and how the Zoho suite is beneficial, and for people to kind of take that on. It was kind of nice. I was up on stage um, with the Zoho folks and kind of going through everything. But afterwards, we're kind of hanging around the booth, and they were asking us about Zoho Expense, and I was saying, well, unfortunately, because our company is all over the United States and in South America and Mexico, all over the Americas, mostly with people spread out all over the states. You can't really use it because for our payroll we have to use a professional employer organization to manage all that, and you need to use their expense and all of that. And they sat down and showed me how cool Zoho Expense is. All their travels in there, their plane tickets, their hotels. I mean, it not only does it manage all of their expenses, but it also manages everything around those expenses as well.
Yeah.
It does a super, super nice job with it. So I was really impressed. If you haven't checked it out, I would definitely look at it.
Come a
It's a
long way since we first started playing around with it a couple years back. It's come a
Yeah,
long, long way from there.
yeah. And
Well
this
worth
is
taking
really
a look.
cool. You can now track a vehicle's mileage using GPS.
That's
So
cool.
if you're giving,
That's
if
very cool.
people Yeah, if people are getting expenses based upon their mileage, there's no more, I mean, normally what would you have to do? You get home and you'd say, okay, I drove from here to here to here to here, put it in Google Maps and figure out how far it was, right? If you forgot to like write down your miles at the start, or write down your miles at the end. I mean, I remember walking around with a little logbook, having to record that all of the time for IRS tax purposes. So that is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and some other stuff. Basically, this is kind of what I was talking about. This is the trips, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Bookings, but you can download your ticket, view your ticket. So all of this stuff lives in there. Um, Really cool,
Super
really
nice.
cool. So whole expense has come a long way. I wish we could use it. Anyway, very, very, very good stuff. All right, Tyler, that's going to wrap up the financial news. And moving right along, if you use Bigin iOS mobile app or the Bigin Mac app, uh, dashboards are now available.
This is a need to have feature for Bigin. I mean, the primary use case of Bigin is kind of for that mobile experience, at least in large part. So being able to see the dashboards, obviously dashboards include tons of different things. Some of them are summary level, but some of them are very actionable, right? Lots of users, when they first open a application, go to a dashboard to see what they need to do today. Which deals do I need to follow up on? Where do I need to push things in my pipeline? So got to have it on mobile. I look at my CRM mobile dashboards all the time. I got a couple that I like to just peek in on. So
Yeah.
yeah, shout out to the Bigin team. This one was a need to have without a doubt.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar, I don't know what I think that the Big and Mac app, Apple came out with a thing called Catalyst, seems to be everybody's favorite word, um, for development, where basically if you had an iPad app or a iPhone app, you actually could port that app and make it so once they came out with their M1 and M2 chips, make that app run on a Mac desktop. So app uh, Zoho's gone a couple ways with this, though, Tyler. I've seen their desktop apps that are complete, total standalone apps. I've seen desktop apps from them that are basically just direct ports of the web app.
Yep.
And then I've seen them where it looks like it's just a direct port of like the iPad app kind of thing. So I don't know what we're getting here, but be curious to play with it and see. It looks like it might be a port of the iPad app. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah.
Looks like the iPad.
Yep. Yeah, I guess it would have to be because otherwise, if you're using the desktop app, if they ported the desktop app, you would already have had dashboards, right? For sure. All right. Moving on with the news. Um, all right. Over in Zoho Desk, if you are on the iOS mobile app, you can now see the accounts module and the contacts module, and you can also see your custom views in those modules.
Yeah, so previously you could really only see tickets, tasks, things like that on the mobile. This is nice because now that you can see them, you can search them, right? You could find certain people that you might have wanted to check in on, right? Again, most of the workflow in Desk is pretty ticket driven. It's probably why this is sat undeployed here for a while on the mobile
Yep.
application. But nonetheless, and we say it all the time, like in an ideal world, anything you can do on browser, you should be able to do on the application, right? Especially like pull a list of contacts, right? It's one that I think a lot of people end up using here.
Alrighty, and that is wrapping up the news, at least the news we're going to talk about on this show. As if you don't know, if you go over to Club Zenatta, all of the news is listed there. We also, when we put out our newsletter, we talk about all the news we covered on the show and then things we left out of the show just for time purposes. So, anyway, that's going to wrap up the news. And with that, Tyler, let's head on over and get to the implementation of the week.
Alrighty, so this is an implementation from the Zoho creator side of the house, building out some pretty custom forms and applications for one of our clients here. So this one is all about data validation, right? How do we keep the data that people are entering standardized and proper, right? Without putting the burden on the user to remember the right formatting. So this one's built out by Landon and Hector on our team, two of our resident creator nerds. And really, the goal, right, is to build a robust system to do that field validation and kind of normalize the format of, I think, more than 60 unique fields that require specific formatting based on the state that a particular customer is in, right? So these are documentation that's going to be generated that have different types of data required based on the particular state. So one of the goals when we do a build like this is how do we structure this in a way where we're not hard coding a bunch of formatting rules into Deluge? Because what if those formatting rules change, right? Well, now our client needs to either learn Deluge on the fly and change them, or have us come back in and make those updates. And while we're always happy to help, the reality is if we can kind of enable the customer to control more things on the front end, they don't have to rely on us to hard code things on the back end. So the team had a good idea of kind of creating a module in their creator app for states, right? Where each state would have one record within that module. There, we can actually store the proper formatting for each of the relevant types of fields that are needed. These are kind of like government identifiers or things like that that have very specific formatting rules. So we can actually just store all of that data there in a place that is accessible to our customer. So they could actually log in, open that app or that module, and make any changes to the formatting rules that they need if things do change. Then lastly, we had to actually write the code. And so, basically build a function where when any of those specific kind of needs validation fields are going to get updated, the function will run, look at the state of the particular customer, where are they? Find the appropriate validation and formatting rules in that states module, and then overwrite the data with the newly formatted values. Kind of the beauty of something like this is that to build out that type of formatting, if we're hard coding it, because each state's going to be different, this is a big old function, right? It's hundreds and hundreds of lines. The team was sharing with me this piece of code is like less than 50 lines because we had set up that data structure properly and we're building it to reference, right? Rather than building it to do everything hard coded all on its own. So big shout out to Landon and Hector. I
Nice.
know that this is something Josh actually does in our internal creator app. He has a settings module where tons of different things are stored so that he doesn't have to hard code it. So if we need to like change our kickoff link for clients for a week, Josh doesn't have to go update that in 30 different places in a piece of code. We just go to the settings module, change the link, and now everywhere that it's used is updated. So it's good system design here. So shout out to Landon and Hector. It's a smart way to do it and a way that, again, gives that autonomy to the customer where if they need to make a formatting change, they can do it. They know exactly where to find it. They know how it works. And they don't need us to come back in and write new code for them every time.
Right. So rather than hard coding in for California, for example, CA, CAL, CALIF, all of the different variations for that, because what you want to come back with standard formatting for the states, rather than having to write all that hard coded in one script, you can have them all over sitting in a separate module,
Yeah, a
change
lot of
them.
these are like company IDs and identifiers for certain programs that, in California, you need two numbers dash four numbers dash two numbers. In Texas, you need four numbers dash five numbers, right? And so now the user just puts in the number and it fixes itself to the appropriate formatting. Because then these are going to end up going in documents and being signed and being used. So it's extremely important that they're correct. But for the user to have to remember all of these is just a big pain. So let the system remember them for you and kind of do that work.
Very nice. All righty. And with that, let's head on over to the implementation of the week. Okay, so Greg is back at it. He's replacing parentheses in a Zoho CRM search record query. What's he doing, Tyler?
Yeah. What does it all mean, Basil? So in this case, this is using search records in CRM. And in search records, you essentially feed it a criteria, right? So it needs to know what the parameter is and what the value is that it's searching for. A lot of the times, that value that it's searching for might be dynamically defined in the function itself. And what happens here is that the formatting in that criteria block can get thrown off by parentheses, because parentheses are kind of part of how you format it. And so if the thing you're searching on, so like in Greg's case here, he's saying product name equals dynamic sticks space parentheses 5-pack, right? Well, those parentheses are going to break this search. It's not going to do it right because those are throwing off what the expected formatting of its criteria is. Kind of reads those as a system value, right? That's telling it what to do. So what Greg's doing here is essentially giving you a piece of code that will automatically kind of notate those for the search records field, not to consider them part of the criteria. Basically, just consider that part of the name, not part of the actual like function itself. So it's a good solve. I've actually run into this problem before, and I didn't know to solve it this way. So this is much easier than what I did to work around this a couple of years back. So shout out to Greg again. This is one of those ones that most people might never need, but if you do need it, this is the best way to do it and how you should use it in your system.
Very cool. And as always, if you head over to club.zenatta, that is where you will find Code Share. That's where you can leave questions for Azaz. Ask Zenatta anything about Zoho, our weekly show where we answer all of your questions. And you can just generally engage in our general discussion with everybody who's a member of Azaz. It's free. Just head on over. All we require is your email. All right, Tyler, with that, let's head on over to our read of the week. It's back for 2 weeks in a row. So this
It's
is
a
pretty
fun
cool.
one.
It's over from the Zapier blog. It's top AI art generators in 2023. And it's every AI art generator you should consider using. Should be familiar if you've been playing around with this at all with some of the big boys up here. Basically, what this is, if you're unfamiliar with this, you basically type in a prompt. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're talking about Dolly, which is kind of the big one. This is from OpenAI. And it is a parrot detective wearing a deerstalker hat and smoking a pipe. And it has given you a couple parrot detectives that are wearing deerstalker hats and smoking pipes. So you can get some crazy things out of this. The other, so you've got Dolly 2 is the big one that's out there. What was the first one? So that's not Dolly. That is Dolly. Yes, all Dolly. So you've got Dolly 2, Bing, which is also using Dolly, Mind or Mid Journey, which is another big one. I know that Freddie uses a
Popular
lot. This is
one,
actually
yeah.
sits over on the Discord platform. One that just I didn't know until I was reading the article this morning. Canva, and you really got to search for this. It's called text to image. So you've got to go into Canva and click on the applications in Canva, and then click on text to image. And there it is. And you can type in some text, and you can choose whether it's in landscape mode, phone mode, square, whether it's photorealistic or any of the various styles that you choose from. And it will generate an image for your social media post, for your background, whatever you want it for. So if you're using Canva, it's built in. And on the Pro plan, you get 100 images a day. It's quite a bargain compared to the cost of a lot of these others that are out there. I mean, if you start looking at, for example, Midjourney is $10 for 3.3 hours of GPU time, which is enough for 200 prompts with 4 images. So, it's rather than
Yeah.
buying them all at cart, you kind of go crazy in Canva here. And then Night Cafe, Jasper Art, there are just a whole bunch of them. So if you're actually thinking about generating AI created images, give it a shot. And maybe one of these you already own or you're using, and you can play with it. I will tell you, the photorealistic stuff is amazing. It's
Yeah.
almost, you cannot tell that it's not a photograph.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And yeah, we were playing with it a bit before the show, and it was creating some amazing imagery. Donetta mentions in the chat here, like, didn't realize that Canva had that. Neither did we. We use Canva all the time. We had no idea that that was a thing in there. They should
Yeah.
probably market it because it's really cool. And yeah, we use it regularly, and straight up just had no idea that that was a feature that Canva had added. So
Yeah. That was
yeah,
why I
nice,
was
nice
talking about.
read this week.
Yeah, before the show, after I read this morning, I don't know, I talking to my wife, I go, hey, do you know Canva does AI generated art? And she is in it every single day for her business creating stuff. It's definitely a hidden feature. Like I said, you got to click on apps and then type in, text to image, and that app will come up, and then click the app, and then you're good to go. So pretty nice. All righty then. Let us head on over to Zenatta and see what we've got going on over there. And Wayne has put together an article on embracing GDPR compliance in email marketing with Zoho campaigns. If you are unfamiliar with GDPR, back in 2018, the EU passed the General Data Protection Regulation laws, which is why every time you go to a website, you have to accept the cookies at the bottom of the page and about a million other things. Um, Even though it was only applies to the EU, it pretty much, it's kind of like when the US does something and the EU does something, it applies to the rest of the world. Because
Yeah,
in
'cause
order
even
to
if
do
you're a
business with,
US company, if you're dealing with an EU customer, you are
yes,
obligated to abide by these, is my understanding. So because on a website, you never know. I mean, you do, you can
exactly.
track it, but it's rather safe than sorry, right? You might as well just
Yeah.
be compliant because they will fine you and they will enforce it. They don't take it pretty seriously there.
And Zoho Campaigns completely supports GDPR. And so
Yep.
you can go ahead and turn it on. And this is an article to make sure you've got it all set up properly and how to go ahead and use it. So worth a look if you want to be GDPR compliant, which I recommend you may want to do and probably should do. This is how you do it in Zoho Campaigns. And with that, Tyler, let's get over to our pick of the week. Or not pick of the week, our tip of the week. And our tip of the week comes from Tyler Colt. This was cool,
Free
Tyler. We
haircut
talked
for
about this
me.
on the show, I guess. I don't know, like, was it 3, 4 weeks ago when this was rolled out? This
So
global sets. So global sets was rolled out in CRM. It was something we'd been waiting for a while, and it looks like you made a very nice
yeah.
video explaining how to implement them.
Yeah, we had been kind of begging for these for a while. This is essentially a way to take a set of pick list options and standardize them and then reuse them if you have the same pick list in multiple modules, right? So things like lead source, industry, vertical, right? These are all things that you're going to have in your leads, accounts, contacts, maybe deals for some of them, maybe not for all of them. But you don't want to have to go into each of those different modules and add it, right? So let's say you've never run Google Ads and you start running them, right? And you want to have a lead source for Google Ads. Without global sets, you'd have to add it individually to each module, right? With global sets, you just add it there, and then it will appear in all of the records that it's used. So you can convert your existing fields to use global sets, and I show that in the video. You can also create new ones from scratch. Um, so a good kind of quick run through of those, about 7 minutes long. Highly recommend just at least converting some of those standard fields over to this, because why not? You might as well. There's no reason to have mismatching options for some of those industry, states, lead source, right? You want those normalized across the whole database. So shout out to Zoho for adding this. They've been a bit on a tear this year so far, at least from my view, on
Yeah.
adding some of these really long-standing core feature things. So huge shout out to the CRM team. It feels like they've kind of made a point of clearing out some of the backlog items this year, which is just awesome to see.
Very nice, nice tip. I talked about it earlier, so I'll keep it short here. But if you have not, please head over to youtube.com/Zenatta and you can find all of our latest videos. I also want to give a shout out to Freddie for producing this wonderful Who is Zenatta Consulting video. It's 2 minutes and 8 seconds long. Zoho actually asked us to produce something like that and send it on over. And it was super nice. So if you want to take a look at that, a little bit of self-promotion for us there. But as always, all of our videos are here. I think we did 5 videos this last week. So we really want to thank you for all of your support. And with that, Tyler, let's wrap up this episode of the CRM Zen Show.
Absolutely. And as always, I'll remind everybody, we used to do the Q&A here. Now we're doing that over at Azaz, aka Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. That comes out every single Wednesday, and we try to cover all the questions asked on the show, on YouTube, on Club Zenatta. So feel free to ask those. We will organize them all and get back to you every single Wednesday. It is a labor of love. We love doing it.
All right. And if you would like to get a hold of either myself or Tyler, well, head over to Zenatta.com and click on book a meeting, and we would be happy to talk with you.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes of the show, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today. If you want all that news delivered to your inbox every single Monday, please be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. And as always, we would love if you would like and subscribe here on YouTube, as that really does help us out in the black magic of the YouTube algorithm. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.